Let me guess. You know what to do, but you're just not doing it. I get it. I've been there, and I hear the same thing from my clients every single day. So let's end this frustration right now by learning the 3 things you must do before trying to change your behavior. Effective behavior change is more about preparation than it is discipline. These 3 steps create the conditions your system needs before any shift becomes possible. Welcome to the You're Not the Problem podcast, where the conversations help you understand your nervous system, your patterns, and the adaptations that have been running your life, so you can stop turning on yourself and start standing with yourself. In this space, we tell the truth about unwanted behaviors like emotional eating, overworking, people-pleasing, procrastination, and self-sabotage. We talk about what it's like to live with ongoing stress and overwhelm, how that state shaped your choices, your relationships, your health, and how to step into a lighter, more grounded, deeply authentic way of living. My hope is that every time you listen, you feel less alone, more compassionate towards your patterns, and more rooted in the truth that you're not the problem, you're the possibility. Now, everybody has a behavior they would like to end or adopt, and most likely you have both. So let's start this training by identifying one thing you'd like to stop doing and one thing you'd like to be doing. Maybe you want to stop scrolling half the night, stop eating foods that are hurting your health, stop turning to coping mechanisms to get through the hard moments. Think food, wine, shopping, gaming, binge watching. Maybe you want to stop letting people take advantage of you or overworking. What behavior would make your life better if you could end it? Now, identify a behavior that you want to adopt. What do you know you could be doing to improve your life? Is it taking care of your health by eating cleanly, exercising, sleeping more, relaxing? Maybe you want to up-level your work, your finances, your relationships, set better boundaries, or heal from the past. What is something you know would add to your life? Now, with these goals in mind, let's talk about the 3 things you need to do before trying to succeed at these, okay? First and foremost, I need you to hear me when I say your inability to change has nothing to do with being lazy or broken. You are not the problem. You are not missing some magical personality trait that other people have. There's a reason you haven't been able to change your behavior, and it has nothing to do with being inadequate. It's not you, it's your methodology. So I'm going to share the 3 things you need to succeed in changing your behavior and your life. They are safety, capacity, and energy. These are the 3 pillars I teach in my new book, You're Not the Problem, End the Overwhelm, Restore Energy, and Make Progress That Lasts. This book, which is the first in a series of 3 in my Freedom Formula, is a comprehensive mind-body framework for creating a life of authenticity and fulfillment. And once you understand these 3 pillars and begin implementing them, you can step off the hamster wheel of motivation, failure, self-judgment, and repeat, right? You can stop relying on inconsistent willpower and create change by working with yourself rather than against yourself. Now, let me acknowledge that when you hear me say there are 3 things you have to do before you try to change your behavior, you might feel some resistance, and I can totally relate. What you really want is for me to tell you how you can whip yourself into shape and have everything be different by tomorrow morning. I get it. The idea that there is preliminary work that you have to do before you can even start, that's the last thing you probably want to hear. And I felt the same way for years. I so badly wanted to be more productive, stop emotional eating, be the person I knew I could. I was stuck in that just do it approach for decades. Every morning, every Monday, every morning pretty much, I would recommit to my latest plan to fix myself. And by Tuesday evening, I would be beating myself up for failing. Maybe you've done the same. It's not that the just do it has no place in change and becoming the person you want to be, but it has to be built on the 3 pillars of safety, capacity, and energy, because without these, your efforts to just do it will only lead to failure. I consider safety, capacity, and energy to be that strong foundation or the basement for everything else that you want to build. You can adopt the behaviors and the habits that take you everywhere you want to go with these. Okay. Starting with safety, capacity, and energy is also compassionate because it stops the self-attack. It gives you a true explanation for why you get stuck, which means you can respond to yourself with intelligence instead of shame. Finally, starting with safety, capacity, and energy is the fastest way to change because it removes the real obstacles, the ones that sit underneath your behavior. Now, whenever I'm working with someone who feels that building their foundation is going to take too long, I ask them the following question. How long have you been trying unsuccessfully to change your behavior? And the answer is always the same. Too long. Whether it's been decades, years, or months, you've been working too hard for too long not to have results. I know the part of you that is in pain and desperately wants change today. For that part, to focus on the 3 foundational pillars feels counter to your goals. But truly, this is the quickest, most effective, most compassionate way to become the person you want. You've tried the just do it approach. Your data, not my words, proves that it's not working. It's time to try something else. So let's get into the 3 pillars of change. First up is safety. When we talk about safety, we aren't talking about physical safety. We're talking about the feeling of safety. Your nervous system is in charge of whether or not you feel safe. And it is constantly scanning your environment for cues of threat or cues of safety. And depending on the number and the intensity of the cues of danger and safety and the state your system at the time those cues come in, your system will shift in response to those cues. What are cues of threat? Many things in our daily experience, obligations at work and at home, news stories, not feeling enough, conflict, money fears, health challenges, lack of sleep, a poor diet, not enough rest, getting lots of spam emails every day with scary information. All of these things and more register as threats. Cues of safety are pleasant experiences and restorative practices, yoga, meditation, somatic practices, my favorite. Co-regulating with people we love and that feel safe and supportive. When our system registers more threats than safety, it shifts the state of our nervous system from calm and resource to survival mode. And this is really important to understand because you are 2 different people in these 2 states. In the regulated state of home base, you are calm, connected, clear, curious. You're open to yourself and others and to experiences that are supportive. You can think creatively, solve problems, act with your long-term plans in mind. But in the activated shutdown state, you're the opposite. You turn hypervigilant, maybe frantic, not able to settle. You react instead of plan. And you lose the ability to control your impulses, and everything feels harder to navigate. You don't worry about the long term. You think only about survival in the next 2 minutes. In this part of you, it's unable to follow through on the actions you want to take. In survival mode, you're amped up on a cocktail of cortisol and adrenaline, and you're shut down under a heavy blanket of fatigue and overwhelm. In survival mode, change isn't possible, right? And it's not only trying to change when you're in survival mode is not only mean, but it's entirely ineffective. Change is possible when you're steady and stable. If your system is running even mild threat, your brain is going to prioritize short-term relief, control, and certainty. And that's why unwanted behaviors show up so powerfully. They work, right? Emotional eating works because it shifts your state. Doom scrolling works because it gives your brain stimulation and distraction. Overworking works because it gives you a temporary sense of control, right? People-pleasing works because it reduces the risk of conflict. Those behaviors are not weakness. They are protective and indicative of a system that's in survival mode. Trying to rip them away without building safety is like ripping away someone's life preserver while they're stranded at sea. Safety is a foundational element of change because without it, your system can't tolerate the discomfort of being without your coping strategies when you're in survival mode. Likewise, safety is required when you want to adopt behaviors as well. So let's say you want to follow through on a 3 times per week movement plan. If your nervous system associates movement with pressure, punishment, comparison, failure, you can have the best workout plan on earth, but still fail to follow through. If you don't feel safe, your system wisely prioritizes in the moment safety rather than action that is focused on long-term well-being. The bottom line is without safety, change won't happen consistently, if at all. The next pillar on your way to meaningful and sustainable change is capacity. Before you can expect yourself to endure the challenge of saying no to a behavior that has worked for you in the past or saying yes to a behavior that supports your goal, you have to have the capacity to follow through. Capacity is your ability to hold life, emotion, change, discomfort without tipping into overwhelm, collapse, or coping. Many people try to change their behavior while living at full capacity already. If your day is already packed, if your nervous system is already stretched, the load you're carrying is already heavy, you're not going to add a new routine, a new protocol, a new plan, a new habit, a new expectation. In my book, You're Not the Problem, I teach a simple methodology for tracking your capacity, just like you would your bank account. In order to have the capacity to avoid unwanted behaviors or adopt new ones, you've got to have the capacity to spend in the first place. If you're trying to take on more than you have the capacity for, your system will respond exactly like you would if someone handed you one more bag when your arms are already full. This is a concept. It's so easy to understand, but it's incredibly difficult to apply in our modern lives. The idea that you must and can make your life fit your capacity is the exact opposite of what we're taught and what we witness to be the norm in our world. To have a capacity for what will change your life, you must first understand what capacity is, what drains yours, and how to restore it. You have to build enough to be able to engage with what it takes to follow through. Honoring your capacity also involves building a supportive ladder toward the changes you want to enact rather than taking that all or nothing approach that really just disregards how much you actually can handle, right? If engaging in life in a way that matches your level of capacity, by doing that, you can win trust and consistency. Don't fall into the trap like I did for so long, believing that I just need more willpower. Because if you're in survival mode, you lack capacity and willpower is missing. Now, when it comes to stopping unwanted behaviors, here's how capacity comes into play. You're standing at the refrigerator, you're about to pick up your phone and scroll. And if you have any hope of stopping your behavior, you've got to find another way to support yourself. You can't just say, don't do that. Without supporting yourself, you don't stand a chance of being able to choose another route. But supporting yourself requires capacity. In the same way, getting yourself to follow through on a behavior you want to adopt also takes capacity. Everything requires capacity, and without it, you're unable to glide through life. Now, as we pause for a moment here and really consider this fact, it seems silly, doesn't it? That you would want to continue to expect your behavior to change when there's no available capacity. It's ineffective. It's cruel, really. That's like expecting your car to take you somewhere when it's out of gas, right? Start with some fuel in your tank and you'll be able to get somewhere. Now, in addition to safety and capacity, the third pillar you need to produce change is energy. You can have the best intentions and the strongest desire on the planet, but if your cells don't have the energy they need, you'll stay stuck in circumstances you don't want. Without realizing what's happening, your system says no. Not because you lack willpower, but because your biology is prioritizing protection over progress. In my book, I explain how the cell danger theory offers a helpful framework for understanding this because it suggests that when the body senses threat, through chronic stress, inflammation, illness, trauma load, toxic load, or ongoing depletion, the energy-producing mitochondria within your cells shift into a defensive state that changes how energy is produced and used. In that state, your body is less available for growth, for change, and consistent follow-through, since so much of its resources are directed just towards staying safe and protected. That's why you might feel foggy, flat, tired, reactive, or unmotivated, even when you genuinely care. and why behavior change can feel like you're trying to push a boulder uphill with an empty tank. Real momentum begins when you stop moralizing your fatigue and you start rebuilding energy in practical ways so that your system can shift out of defense and back into a state where action is possible. When I first began my practice, I focused primarily on those first two pillars, safety and capacity. And those components are essential for shifting you out of survival mode. But if your body is depleted at the cellular level, you're going to stay stuck. And I can't impress on you enough how essential this is for healing and building the life that you want. It's easy to assume that the biggest changes will happen in the emotional breakthroughs and the mindset shifts, but if the body's foundational needs aren't met, the deeper work, it can't take root. Your expansive self, it needs a body that can hold the new life you're wanting to create. And when you give your body what it needs to produce energy, you'll find it strengthens the entire foundation that you're trying to build. So let's put this all together. When you bring together safety, capacity, and energy, you create a powerful reaction. It reminds me of my son's favorite science experiment. When he was about 5 years old, he would gather his supplies of baking soda, vinegar, and dish soap as I made dinner. And each of these everyday ingredients, it's nothing special on its own. But as he carefully combined them, the mixture instantly bubbled up and spilled uncontrollably out of the top of his paper mache volcano, all over the counter. That's what's going to happen for you. When you mix safety, capacity, and energy, they explode your life in the best way possible. Your expansive self comes shooting out, spilling everywhere. Safety gives your system that felt sense of support, which brings choice back online. Capacity gives your system room, which makes the next step realistic. Energy gives your system fuel, which makes consistency possible. And once those three are in place, behavior change stops being a fight. You don't need more discipline. You need more internal resources and support. Use your discipline, the discipline that you do have towards creating the internal conditions so that change can happen. Now, it's easy to watch a video like this, maybe feel a little more hopeful, then go right back into the same loop because nothing changes. Nothing changes just because you hear something, right? Change happens because you do something. So I invite you to do something right now. And there are 3 choices. First, take the nervous system signature quiz. This is a quick way to get some clarity about how your nervous system tends to respond under stress, how that state shapes your behavior, and what kinds of support are most likely to help you shift. It's less about labeling yourself and more about giving you a clear starting point so you can stop guessing, start working with your system. Second is the free introduction to my book, You Are Not the Problem. End the overwhelm, restore energy, and make progress that lasts. If you want a deeper education behind what we covered today, this will walk you through the framework in a way you can revisit, you can underline, you can apply. Let it help you understand what has been driving your patterns and where to begin. Third, check out my course, Unstuck and Unstoppable. This is for people who want the structure of a guided path along with weekly live support and community so you can integrate this work instead of trying to do it all in your head. Takes the same core material, helps you turn it into real change through practice, repetition, and support. So choose a resource, take a supportive step toward change instead of just feeling more hopeful for a few minutes. The right action will make all the difference. All the links are below in the video description. And if this video resonated with you, make sure to subscribe and send it to someone you know who would love to change their behavior and who needs to hear they're not the problem. I'll see you next time.